Mom and Dad took my daughter's cruise tickets and handed them to my sister's kid. "Your daughter doesn't belong on a trip like this," Mom said. My daughter sat silent with her suitcase in her lap. When they reached boarding, the agent scanned the tickets and said, "These seats were reported stolen. Nobody moves." Then he read the original passenger name, and my sister stopped smiling. The envelope was on the kitchen counter where I left it, white, unlined, with the cruise line logo in the corner and the booking confirmation number written in my handwriting on the back. Inside were 2 boarding passes, 2 luggage tags, and a shore excursion voucher for a dolphin encounter in Cozumel that cost $89 and took me 3 weeks to decide on, because $89 is a shift and a half after taxes, and I needed to be sure Josie would love it. She would love it. She had been reading about dolphins since October. She had facts memorized. She told Ada Loomis next door that dolphins sleep with one eye open, and Ada said, "Smart animals. I do the same thing." The envelope was on the counter, and my mother's hand was inside it. I had walked in from a 48-hour shift at Station 14 at 6:12 p.m. on a Saturday in January. My uniform was still on. My boots were still laced. I could smell the diesel and the latex and the faint copper smell that stays in your hair after a bad call. And the bad call had been a motorcycle accident on Seawall Boulevard that I do not want to talk about, because this is not that story. This is the story of what I saw when I turned the corner from the hallway into the kitchen. Blythe Pratt, my mother, 61 years old, standing at my counter with the envelope open and the boarding passes in her left hand and her purse unzipped on the counter with the right hand already moving toward it. Josie was on the couch. 12 years old in 4 days, she was sitting with her suitcase across her knees. The suitcase was purple, the small rolling kind, and she had packed it 3 days earlier and repacked it twice and left it by the front door and moved it to her room and moved it back to the door and finally brought it to the couch, where she sat with it in her lap like a desk, her hands flat on the top, her charm bracelet resting against the zipper. She was watching her grandmother take the tickets out of the envelope. She did not move. She did not speak. She sat with the suitcase in her lap, and she watched. My father Royce was not in the room. He was in the car in the driveway, engine running. He had driven Blythe here. He knew what she was doing. He sat in the car and let the engine idle and waited. "What are you doing?" Blythe did not flinch. She turned and she looked at me the way she has looked at me my entire life, when she has already made the decision, and the conversation is a formality. "Your daughter does not belong on a trip like this." She would sit in the cabin and read the entire time. "Quinn is social. Quinn thrives in new experiences. Josie barely speaks at dinner. She gets that from you. You drive a truck with a siren and you think you can give her a luxury vacation? She would be embarrassed. You would be embarrassed. Lacey's kids know how to behave on a ship. Yours hides behind a book." She put the boarding passes in her purse. She zipped it closed. She walked toward the door. I looked at Josie. She was still on the couch. Her hands were still on the suitcase. The charm bracelet caught the kitchen light, the tiny silver heart from her first birthday, the star from 5, the book from 8, the treble clef from 11 when she started cello. 11 charms for 11 years. The 12th, a small silver anchor I had bought for $34 at a jewelry store on the Strand, was in my jacket pocket. I was going to clip it onto the bracelet at the railing on her birthday, 3 days into the cruise, while the water moved below us and the sun came through the salt air, and my daughter turned 12 on a ship I paid for with 14 months of overtime. The anchor was still in my pocket. The boarding passes were in my mother's purse. And my daughter was sitting on a couch holding a suitcase she had packed 3 days ago for a trip she had been counting down to since Thanksgiving. I did not chase Blythe to the door. I did not yell. I picked up my phone. I sat on the couch next to Josie. I put my arm around her shoulders, and I pulled her close, and she pressed her face into my uniform, and she smelled diesel and latex and copper, and she did not care, because she is 12, and her father smells like work, and she has never once told me I smell like anything but safe. If you are watching Family Secret Tales for the first time, welcome. This is not a story about cruise tickets. This is a story about $23,400 on a credit card I gave my mother for emergencies, a sister who texted "just take the envelope," and a boarding agent who read my daughter's name out loud at the gangway. I am a paramedic. Station 14, Galveston, Texas. 9 years on the job. I earned $62,000 a year before overtime. After the 48-hour shifts, the holiday coverage, the hurricane standby pay, and the extra shifts I pick up when someone calls in sick, I clear about $74,000. That sounds manageable until you subtract rent on a 2-bedroom apartment, health insurance the county does not fully cover, a dental plan I pay for myself because my ex-wife moved to Portland 4 years ago and sends a birthday card and nothing else, school supplies, cello rental at $45 a month, and the $14,000 I still owe on the ambulance certification program that got me the job in the first place. There is no room for a cruise in those numbers, so I made room. I saved for 14 months. I started in November 2024. Every paycheck, $200 moved into a savings account I named Josie Birthday. I did not touch it. Not when the alternator on the Escape died in February and cost $640. Not when Josie needed new sneakers in April and the ones she wanted cost $85, and the ones I could afford cost $35, and I bought the $85 pair because she deserved shoes that fit, and I picked up a Saturday overtime shift to cover the difference. Not when the water heater went out in August and the landlord took 11 days to fix it, and I heated water on the stove for Josie's bath every night for a week and a half. By December 2025, the Josie Birthday account held $5,800. I booked the cruise on December 15th. 7-night Western Caribbean. Inside cabin, deck 6. No balcony, because balcony cabins cost $3,200 more and $5. $800 was already 14 months of $200 slivers carved out of a paramedic's paycheck. I printed the boarding passes at the public library because my printer was out of ink, and I did not want to spend $28 on a cartridge when $28 was shore excursion money. The shore excursion was a dolphin encounter in Cozumel. $89. I spent 3 weeks deciding because $89 is a shift and a half after taxes. But Josie has been reading about dolphins since October. She told Ada that dolphins sleep with one eye open. Ada said, "Smart animals. I do the same thing." Josie did not know about the cruise until Christmas morning. I put the envelope inside a cereal box. Frosted Flakes, her favorite. She poured the cereal and the envelope fell into the bowl, and she fished it out and opened it and read the boarding pass and looked at me. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened. No sound came for 4 seconds. Then, Dad. 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 3 times. The way a child says a word when the word is the only thing big enough to hold what they are feeling. She packed the suitcase 3 days later, repacked it twice, told Ada, told her cello teacher. She counted the days on the kitchen calendar in red marker, and every morning she crossed one off and the red X got bigger as the number got smaller and the cruise got closer and the world got a little more possible. My family has never seen Josie's red X calendar. They have never asked. Subscribe to Family Secret Tales if you know what it is like to give your kid the world on a paramedic's salary and have your own mother say she does not belong in it. Blythe has always preferred Lacey. That is not an accusation. It is a measurement. You can measure favoritism the way you measure a pulse. You count the beats. You note which ones are strong and which ones are absent. When I graduated from the paramedic program at 23, I drove 90 minutes to tell my parents in person. Blythe was on the phone with Lacey. She held up one finger. I waited 11 minutes. When she hung up, she said, "That is nice, Ellis. Lacey just booked the venue for Quinn's first birthday. Do you want to see the photos?" She did not ask to see the certificate. I put it in my truck, and I drove home. When I told my parents I was working 48-hour shifts, Royce said, "Who is watching the kid?" Not how can we help. Blythe said, "Lacey would never leave Quinn for that long." Lacey does not leave Quinn because Lacey does not work. Troy covers everything. Blythe does not call that unemployed. She calls it being present. When Josie was 8, the Pratt family rented a lake house for the 4th of July. 4 bedrooms. Lacey and Troy got the master with the king bed in the balcony. Quinn got the bunk beds with the closet full of pool toys. Blythe and Royce got the room with the view. Josie and I got the couch in the den. The den had a curtain instead of a door. The curtain did not close all the way. At 6 a.m. Josie could hear Quinn and Lacey in the kitchen making pancakes and laughing. Josie lay on the couch with her book and her bracelet and she said, "Dad, this is like camping." She was trying to make it okay. 8 years old and managing her own disappointment so I would not have to carry it on top of everything else. At Thanksgiving last year, Blythe set the table with 12 place settings for 13 people. Josie's chair was a folding chair from the garage with a towel on the seat because the vinyl was cracked. Quinn sat in a padded dining chair between her parents. When I moved Josie's plate to the table, Blythe moved it back and said, "The kids can eat in the kitchen. There is not enough room." Quinn ate at the table. Josie ate at the counter, alone, paper napkin instead of cloth. She did not say anything. She ate her turkey, and she read her book, and she did not look at the table where her cousin sat between 2 parents in a chair with a cushion. Lacey and Troy live in a house with a 2-car garage and a pool that costs $1,200 a year to maintain. Lacey drives a white Lexus RX, $52,000. Troy earns $110,000 in maritime insurance. Quinn takes dance at $75 a week, wears North Face jackets that cost $280, and has a vanity mirror ringed in LED lights. Lacey posts photos of Quinn on Instagram with captions like "My Little Queen." She has never posted a photo of Josie. She has never mentioned Josie by name. Not once in 12 years. I drive a 2015 Ford Escape with 141,000 miles and a passenger seat held upright by a zip tie. Josie rides in the back with her book and her bracelet, and she has never complained about the zip tie or the miles or the fact that her cousin has a vanity mirror and she has a dolphin nightlight from the dollar store that she loves more than Quinn will ever love a mirror. A child who never complains has learned that complaining changes nothing. That is not resilience. That is a scar shaped like silence. The night Blythe took the tickets, after she left and after Royce drove her away in the idling sedan, I sat on the couch with Josie for 11 minutes without speaking. She did not cry. She pressed her face into my uniform and she held the suitcase, and I could feel her breathing slow, the way breathing slows when a child is deciding whether to feel the thing or put it away. Then she said, "I can unpack." That sentence broke me the way a call breaks you. Not all at once. In one clean line across the middle. I said, "Do not unpack." I called the cruise line at 7:40 p.m. The customer service representative asked for the booking number. I gave it. She asked for the original passenger names. I said Ellis Pratt and Josie Pratt. She asked the nature of the issue. I said, "The boarding passes were physically taken from my home without my consent. The tickets are in the possession of someone who is not authorized to use them." She asked if I wanted to report them stolen. I said yes. She asked if I had filed a police report. I said I would file one in the morning. She flagged the booking. She gave me a case number. She said, "If anyone attempts to board with these passes, they will be stopped at the gangway and port security will be notified." That was a Saturday night. I filed the police report Sunday morning, Galveston PD. Case number GP 2026-0418. Theft of property valued at $5,800. I gave the officer the booking confirmation, the original receipt, and the names of the individuals in possession of the stolen tickets. The officer asked if the suspects were known to me. I said, "They are my mother and my sister." He wrote it down without expression. That is something paramedics and police officers have in common. We write down facts that would break most people, and we do not change our face while we do it. While pulling my accounts to assess the damage that night, I found the second thing. The thing that turned a stolen cruise ticket into a 2-year criminal pattern I had been funding without knowing it. I had given Blythe an emergency Visa card 2 years ago. A card linked to my account with a $5,000 limit, intended for medical emergencies only. Blythe has high blood pressure. She takes lisinopril and a beta blocker, and she sees a cardiologist every 6 months. I wanted her to have a way to pay for a prescription or an ER copay without calling me during a 48-hour shift where I am sometimes holding someone's head still while a helicopter lands or compressing a chest in the back of a moving truck. I gave her the card at her kitchen table, and I said, "This is for emergencies. Medical only. Prescriptions, ER visits, nothing else." She put it in her wallet next to her Kroger rewards card and said, "Of course, honey." She said honey the way she says it when she has already decided the rules do not apply. The statement showed $23,400 in charges over 24 months. The original $5,000 limit had been raised 3 times by the bank's automatic increase algorithm based on my payment history, my income, my credit score. I was the engine. Lacey was the passenger. Blythe was the key that started the car and handed it over and never looked at the odometer. I went through the statement line by line the way I go through a patient chart when the vitals do not match. Something is wrong. Find it. Lacey's Nail Salon. Twice a month. $100 per visit. 2 years. $2,400 in acrylic nails on an emergency medical card. Quinn's Private Tutoring. $350 a month. 12 months. $4,200. 3 clothing boutiques on the Strand and Post Office Street. $3,800. All in Lacey's size. Not Blythe's. Lacey's. Troy's Golf Club membership. $2,600 annual fee. Charged March 2025. A man earning $110,000 a year charging his golf to his brother-in-law's emergency card. Restaurant charges at 11 restaurants across Galveston and Houston. $4,100. Including a $340 bill at a steakhouse in the Heights with 2 bottles of wine and a dessert tasting menu, and $6,300 in recurring charges that when I pulled the merchant codes turned out to be Lacey's car insurance. 6 months of premium on the white Lexus RX. On my emergency card. My sister's luxury SUV insured by a man who drives a Ford Escape with a zip tie holding the seat up. I almost called Blythe that night. I almost put the phone to my ear and said every number out loud and asked her how nail appointments and golf memberships and car insurance premiums qualify as medical emergencies. The thing that stopped me was Ada. Ada knocked on my door at 10:15 p.m. She had heard Blythe's car leave earlier. She heard the door close hard. She looked at Josie on the couch with the suitcase, and she looked at me standing in the kitchen with the credit card statement on the screen, and she said, "That child has been packed for 3 weeks, Ellis." She crossed off every day in red marker on your calendar. You fix this. Ada did not ask what happened. Ada does not ask. She shows up. She brings a casserole or a knock or a sentence, and she leaves. She has been doing that for 3 years, since the night my ex-wife's lawyer sent the final papers, and Ada came over with a Tupperware of chicken soup and sat with Josie while I read the decree at the kitchen table and did not cry because Josie was in the next room and the walls are thin. I canceled the emergency card at 11 p.m. Every recurring charge would bounce within 72 hours. Lacey's Nails, Quinn's Tutoring, Troy's Golf, Lacey's car insurance, $1,400 a month expenses disappearing from Lacey's life like air leaving a tire. Slow at first. Then, all at once. The third thing I found came from Blythe's own phone. At the port, 8 days later, after the boarding agent flagged the tickets and port security arrived, and the family was standing at the gangway with their luggage in their faces and the specific silence of people who have been caught, Blythe set her phone on the security counter while she fumbled for her ID. The screen was unlocked. The text chain was open. Subscribe to Family Secret Tales because the text chain is where the story changes. Lacey to Blythe, December 28, 2:14 p.m. Just take the envelope from the counter. He will not notice until it is too late. Quinn needs this. You know she does. Blythe to Lacey, December 28, 2:16 p.m. Are you sure? What if he finds out before the sailing? Lacey to Blythe, December 28th, 2:17 p.m. He is working a 48. By the time he finds out, we will be at sea. Tell him Quinn won a school contest or something. He will not check. He never checks. She was right about one thing. I never checked. I trusted my mother the way I trust my partner on a call. Completely, without looking over her shoulder. That is how trust works. It works until the person holding it decides it is a tool instead of a bond. Lacey to Blythe, January 2nd. Did you get them? Blythe to Lacey, January 2nd. Not yet. He keeps them on the counter in the envelope. I will go when he has a shift. Lacey to Blythe, January 9th, 11:42 a.m. Tomorrow. He has a 48 starting at 6 a.m. Go in the morning. Use the key. Blythe went on January 10th, a Saturday. She used the spare key I gave her for emergencies. The same word she uses for everything she takes from me. The card was for emergencies. The key was for emergencies. The tickets were an emergency because Lacey wanted them, and Lacey's wants are the only kind of emergency my mother has ever recognized. This was not Blythe's idea. Blythe was the hand. Lacey was the brain. Lacey saw the cruise confirmation on my phone at Thanksgiving dinner when I set my phone on the kitchen counter while I carved the turkey that Josie was not allowed to eat at the table. She saw the email, she calculated the cost, she decided Quinn deserved it more, and she told our mother to steal it. I almost drove to Lacey's house that night with the screenshots. The thing that stopped me was Josie's bracelet. She was asleep. The bracelet was on her nightstand next to a library book about marine biology and the dolphin nightlight from the dollar store. 11 charms in a line, each one a year, each one chosen by me, each one small and silver and specific. Heart, star, horse, flower, paintbrush, seashell, book, cat, compass, music note, treble clef, and an empty link at the end where the anchor was supposed to go. I was not going to fill that link with anger. I was going to fill it with the ocean. The port scene happened on January 18th. I called Ada the night before. I said, I need you to drive Josie to the port at 8 a.m. I will meet you in the parking lot. Ada did not ask why. She said, I will bring muffins. That is Ada. One sentence, one pastry. Everything you need. I drove to the port of Galveston at 7:30 a.m. I parked in the lot across from Terminal 2. Ada pulled in at 8:05 with Josie in the passenger seat eating a blueberry muffin. Josie was wearing a blue sundress, and her bracelet and her reading book was in her lap. She did not know what was about to happen. She thought we were watching the ships. At 9:15, Blythe's sedan pulled into the drop-off lane. Royce driving. Blythe in the passenger seat. Lacey, Troy, and Quinn climbing out of the back. Troy pulling 2 rolling suitcases and a garment bag. Quinn in a new sundress with new sandals and a new backpack with a luggage tag that said Quinn in gold letters. Lacey had her hair done. Fresh highlights. She was smiling the smile she uses when she is about to post something. The cruise countdown smile. The My Little Queen smile. The smile of a woman walking onto a ship with tickets that belong to a 12-year-old girl eating a blueberry muffin in a parking lot 30 yards away. They joined the boarding line. Blythe held the envelope. She handed the passes to the gate agent at the gangway scanner. The agent ran the first pass. The screen changed. The agent ran the second pass. Same screen. He set the passes down. He picked up a radio. Officer Sosa arrived in 90 seconds. Port security. Badge on his belt. Calm face. The face of a man who has handled this before. He asked Blythe for identification. He asked for the names on the boarding passes. Blythe's voice had changed. The certainty from my kitchen was gone. She said, Josie Pratt and Ellis Pratt. But we are traveling on their behalf. It is a family arrangement. Officer Sosa looked at the screen. He looked at Blythe. These boarding passes were reported stolen on January 10th. Galveston PD case number GP 2026-0418. The original passenger is Josie Pratt, age 12. These tickets are flagged. Nobody moves. The line behind them went silent. 20 passengers watching. A woman in a sun hat put her hand on her child's shoulder and pulled him one step back. Blythe tried first. The managing voice. Officer, this is a misunderstanding. My son gave us these tickets. He wanted us to take his niece Quinn instead. Sosa did not blink. Ma'am, the booking holder filed a police report. The tickets are reported as stolen property. Lacey stepped forward. The performance voice, bright and reasonable. My brother and I discussed this. He agreed Quinn should go instead. He must have reported it by mistake. If you call him, he will confirm. Ma'am, the report states the tickets were taken without consent. Your name is not on the booking. Lacey tried a third angle. Lower, faster. We drove 3 hours to get here. My daughter has been looking forward to this for weeks. Can you just let us board and sort it out with the cruise line later? Sosa said, no. Lacey's smile dropped the way a mask drops when the elastic snaps. Not slowly. All at once. Her mouth stayed open for 2 seconds with nothing behind it. Troy set the garment bag on the ground. Royce took 1 step backward. Quinn looked at her mother and said, Mom, what is happening? Blythe's hand went to her throat, the involuntary gesture of a woman who has just realized the door she walked through does not open from the inside. I almost stayed in the parking lot. The thing that stopped me was Josie. She was watching through the windshield. She could see the gangway. She could see her grandmother. She could see Quinn in the sundress that was bought for a trip, that was bought with tickets, that were bought with Josie's father's overtime. She pressed her hand against the window and said, Dad, that is my name. I took her hand. We walked across the parking lot together, through the terminal entrance, past the luggage carousels, past the other passengers who had stopped to watch, past a woman who pulled her child behind her, past a man who said to his wife, quietly, someone tried to board with stolen tickets. I stopped 10 feet from the gangway. Lacey saw me first. Her face went through 4 expressions in 3 seconds: surprise, confusion, recognition, and then the very specific look of a person who has just understood that the quiet brother, the ambulance driver, the man who smells like diesel and gives away emergency credit cards, has been 2 moves ahead of her since the night she sent the first text. I looked at Officer Sosa. I said, I am Ellis Pratt. I filed the theft report. The original passenger is my daughter Josie. Josie was standing beside me, her bracelet on her wrist, 11 charms and a bare link where the 12th would go. I looked at Blythe. I looked at Lacey. I looked at Royce, who was still 1 step back from the group with his hands in his pockets and his eyes on the floor. The passenger name is Josie Pratt. She belongs on every ship I put her on. You stole from a 12-year-old. Blythe's hand was still at her throat. Her fingers pressed white into the skin above her collarbone. Her lips moved without sound. Her left knee buckled slightly, the body losing its argument with gravity, and she reached for the scanner counter to steady herself. The purse strap slid off her shoulder and she did not catch it. It hung at her elbow like a thing she had forgotten she was carrying. Lacey's face had gone white from the temples inward, the blood draining the way I have watched blood drain from a patient's face on a gurney when the body starts shutting down systems it no longer needs. She reached for Troy's arm. Troy did not move toward her. He stood with the garment bag at his feet, and his jaw locked, and his hands at his sides, palms turned slightly outward, making himself smaller. Calculating exposure. Measuring distance from the problem, Quinn started crying, not loud. The thin, bewildered crying of a child who was told she was going on a cruise and is now standing at a gangway that will not open with a security officer between her and the ship and her mother's face doing something she has never seen it do. Royce was 3 steps behind the group, hands in pockets, eyes on the terminal floor. He had not spoken a single word since they arrived. He had not spoken a word when Blythe took the tickets from my counter. He had not spoken a word when she used the spare key. The silent driver of every getaway my mother has ever pointed at my door, and he was silent now. I took Josie's hand. We walked back through the terminal. We did not look back. Josie held my hand in one hand and her book in the other, and the bracelet caught the light from the terminal windows and the bare link where the anchors should be swung with each step, a small silver absence keeping time. In the parking lot, Ada was leaning against her car with her arms folded and a look on her face that was not surprise and was not satisfaction and was something closer to the quiet nod of a woman who has been waiting 3 years for the brother to stop giving and the mother to stop taking, and the math. 2 finally come due. Josie said, "Are we going home?" "Not yet." I drove to the seawall. I parked at the jetty at 61st Street. We sat on the rocks and we watched the cruise ship back away from the dock and turn south toward the open Gulf and grow smaller on the horizon until it was a white dot and then nothing. Josie did not ask about the tickets. She did not ask about her grandmother. She opened her book and she read with her bare feet on the warm rock and the wind in her hair and the January sun on her arms, and she was quiet in the way she is quiet when she is not managing her disappointment, but actually, for once, at peace. After 20 minutes, she closed the book and looked at me and said, "Dad, will you put the anchor on now?" I took the charm from my jacket pocket, the small silver anchor, $34 from the jewelry store on the Strand. I clipped it onto the bare link at the end of the chain. It settled between the treble clef and the space that was no longer empty. Josie held her wrist up and turned it in the light, and the 12 charms caught the January sun, one by one, Heartstar, Horseflower, Paintbrush, Seashell, Book, Cat, Compass, Note, Clef, Anchor. 12 years and a line on a silver chain on a girl's wrist, on a rock on a jetty, while a ship she was supposed to be on disappeared over the edge of the world. "It is perfect," she said. It was. On January 25th, Blythe showed up at Josie's middle school. 3:15 p.m., pickup time. She parked her sedan at the curb and waited by the flagpole with her purse over her arm and her lipstick fresh and the expression she uses when she has prepared a speech. When Josie walked out the front doors with her backpack and her cello case, Blythe stepped toward her and said, "Sweetheart, Grandma wants to talk to you. Just for a minute. I brought you something." The school office called me. The receptionist said, "Mr. Pratt, there is a woman at the pickup curb who is not on Josie's authorized list. She says she is her grandmother." I was 3 minutes away, returning from a supply run at the station. I pulled into the lot. I walked to the curb. Josie saw me and walked to the truck without being told. She knew. 12 years old, and she knew that the woman at the flagpole was not there to give her something. She was there to take something else. Blythe said, "Ellis, we need to discuss this. You cannot shut your family out over a misunderstanding. Your father has not slept in 2 weeks. Royce was in the car. Same sedan. Same driver's seat. Same engine running. Same silence. The man has not spoken to me directly since January 10th. He has spoken about me." Blythe relays it. "Your father thinks you are being unreasonable. Your father is hurt. Your father wants to know what it will take. But Royce himself has not called, has not texted, has not driven to my apartment alone. He sits in the car and lets the engine idle while Blythe does the talking because that is the arrangement. That has always been the arrangement." I did not look at Blythe. I opened the truck door for Josie. Josie got in. She put her cello case on the seat and buckled herself in and looked straight ahead. I closed the door. I walked around to the driver's side. I got in. I drove away. In the rearview mirror, Blythe was standing at the flagpole with her purse over her arm and her hand raised halfway, not waving, not reaching, just suspended in the air the way a hand hangs when the person it belongs to has run out of gestures that anyone will receive. The financial fallout started 3 days after I canceled the card. Lacey's nail appointment bounced. The salon receptionist ran the card twice, declined both times. Lacey paid cash, $100 she had not budgeted because she had never had to budget for nails. The card had always worked. It worked the way my paycheck works. Automatically, invisibly, without anyone thinking about where the money comes from. Quinn's tutoring invoice bounced. The service sent a past due notice by email. The tutor called Lacey directly. "I cannot hold Quinn's Thursday slot without payment." Lacey called Blythe. Blythe called me. 3 times. I did not answer. On the 4th call, she left a voicemail, "Ellis, Something is wrong with the card. Quinn's tutor is threatening to drop her. Call me back. I did not call back. The card was canceled. The emergency was over because there had never been an emergency. There had only been nails and golf and car insurance dressed up in the word emergency like a costume. Troy's golf club auto renewal bounced. The club sent a suspension notice by certified mail. Troy called the club and paid $2,600 with his own visa and did not tell Lacey because the conversation would have required him to explain why he had been charging his golf to his brother-in-law's medical card for a year. Lacey's car insurance premium bounced. The insurer sent a 10-day lapse warning. If the premium was not covered, the policy would cancel, and Lacey would be driving a $52,000 Lexus without insurance in the state of Texas. She found $1,400 in her checking account. She paid it. She had $200 left. For groceries and gas and everything else she used to put on my card without a second thought. $23,400 over 2 years. Nails, tutoring, golf, insurance, steakhouse dinners, boutique clothing. All running on a card I gave my mother for blood pressure medication. All flowing because Lacey needed it and Blythe allowed it, and nobody told me, because telling me would mean acknowledging that the ambulance driver was funding the Lexus driver's life. The social fallout came through Troy's office. He works in maritime insurance. Galveston is a port town. Port security incidents are professional gossip. A coworker named Phil asked Troy at the coffee machine, "Hey, was that your family at Terminal 2? Someone said there was a stolen ticket thing at boarding." Troy stirred his coffee for 8 seconds without answering. Phil waited. Troy said, "It was a misunderstanding." Phil said, "Must have been." He did not sound like he believed it. Lacey deleted her Facebook cruise countdown posts. All 4 of them. The comments were already there. A friend had written, "OMG, so excited for you." Another, "Quinn is going to love it." The post disappeared, but the comments lived in people's memories the way comments do when the promise was public and the failure was quiet. Here is the part that stays with you long after the numbers and the invoices and the gate codes are done. In February, Lacey went to the mall. She had bought $3,400 in cruise wardrobe. New sundresses. New sandals. A swimsuit cover-up from a boutique near the seawall. Linen pants. A wide-brimmed hat she had tried on in the mirror and posted to her story with the caption "Cruise ready." She brought it all back. Every item. Tags reattached with the little plastic guns. Receipts spread across the returns counter like a fan of losing poker hands. The sales clerk scanned each item and looked at the tags and looked at Lacey and asked, "Is there something wrong with the clothes?" Lacey said, "They do not fit." She meant something the clerk did not understand. The clothes fit her body. They did not fit her life. They were purchased for a trip she did not take, on a credit card that no longer existed, with tickets she stole from a 12-year-old who packs suitcases 3 days early and crosses off calendar days in red marker and sits with the suitcase in her lap and does not cry when her grandmother takes the boarding passes out of the envelope. Quinn asked for a charm bracelet for her birthday in March. She had seen Josie's at the Thanksgiving table, between the counter and the dining room, between the paper napkin and the cloth ones, and she wanted one like it. Lacey looked at the price online. A starter bracelet with 2 charms, $68. She closed the browser tab. She did not buy it. She could not explain to Quinn why she could not afford $68 when 6 weeks earlier she was running $100 nail appointments and $340 steakhouse dinners on her brother's emergency card. The math does not translate into a sentence a child can understand. Some math never does. 2 months after the port, on a Saturday in March, I rented a pontoon boat on Galveston Bay. $200 for 4 hours. Not a cruise ship, not 7 nights, not a cabin on deck 6. A flat-bottom boat with a canopy and a cooler and a motor that topped out at 8 knots and a wake so small the pelicans did not bother moving. Josie sat in the bow with her feet over the side and her book open on her lap and the bracelet on her wrist catching the afternoon light. 12 charms now. The anchor at the end of the chain, small and silver, resting against her wrist bone where the pulse is closest to the surface. She read 3 chapters. She ate a turkey sandwich with the crust cut off because she is 12, and she still does not like crusts, and I still cut them off, because that is what you do for the person you love the most in the world. She trailed her fingers in the water and watched the pelicans, and she did not ask for anything else. She did not need a ship. She needed her father. She needed water beneath her and a book in her hand, and the knowledge that the man sitting at the wheel of a $200 pontoon boat had spent 14 months saving and 1 phone call fighting to make sure nobody ever took anything from her again. Ada was on the dock when we came back in. She was standing with a canvas bag and a tin of oatmeal cookies, and she waved the way she waves at everything, with her whole arm, like the gesture matters too much to do small. Josie jumped off the boat before I finished tying the line and ran to her, and Ada caught her and said, "Did you bring me a magnet?" Josie laughed. "There is no gift shop on a pontoon boat, Ada. Then you owe me one." I tied the line to the cleat, and I stood on the dock, and I looked at my daughter, and I looked at Ada, and I looked at the water where the light was breaking into pieces and reforming and breaking again the way water does, when nothing is disturbing it except the current itself. Josie held up her wrist. The 12 charms caught the sun. The anchor at the end of the chain turned slowly on the link, and the light passed through it and made a small bright spot on the dock that moved when her wrist moved. She belongs on every ship I put her on. Every pontoon, every jetty, every dock, every bay where the water is flat and the light is good and her father is close enough to see the charms on her wrist catching the sun. Every single one.